Did you know this about Dracula? Long ago in the 15th century, a powerful ruler named Vlad III Dracula lived in Wallachia, a land in modern-day Romania. He was known as Vlad the Impaler because of the way he fought his enemies. Vlad was a fierce warrior, trained since childhood to defend his land from invaders. His father, a knight of the Order of the Dragon, gave him the name Dracula, meaning son of the dragon. His land was often attacked by the Ottoman Empire, and Vlad had to fight to protect his people. But he ruled with strict and harsh methods, punishing criminals and enemies with no mercy. Some saw him as a hero, while others feared him. Over time, legends began to grow about Vlad Dracula. Stories of his battles and punishments spread across Europe, and some claimed he was more than just a man, some believed he was a creature of the night. After Vlad Dracula's death, his story did not end. Instead, it grew into legend. Hundreds of years later, in 1897, a writer named Bram Stoker created a fictional character based on the real Vlad. He named him Count Dracula, a mysterious and powerful nobleman from Transylvania. In Stoker's story, Dracula was not just a ruler, he was a vampire. He could live forever, transform into a bat, and drink the blood of the living. His castle stood tall in the Carpathian Mountains, filled with dark secrets. The story followed Jonathan Harker, a young man who traveled to Dracula's castle, only to realize that his host was not an ordinary man. Dracula had dark powers, and he wanted to spread his curse beyond Transylvania. This book made Dracula the most famous vampire in history. But was the real Dracula truly a vampire, or was it just a story? High in the misty Carpathian Mountains, Dracula's castle stood tall, surrounded by dark forests. When Jonathan Harker arrived, he was welcomed by Count Dracula himself, a tall, pale man with piercing eyes. At first, Jonathan thought the Count was polite, though a little strange. But soon, he noticed something was wrong. He was not allowed to leave, and at night, Dracula vanished from sight. One evening, Jonathan saw something terrifying. Dracula climbing down the castle walls like a spider, his cloak billowing in the wind. He realized he was a prisoner in the castle of a monster. As the days passed, Jonathan grew weaker. Strange dreams haunted him, and he often felt dizzy. Was it just his imagination, or was something draining his strength? Jonathan had to escape before it was too late. But Dracula had other plans. While Jonathan was trapped, Dracula had already set his sights on England. He boarded a ship, bringing mystery and fear along with him. During the journey, the ship's crew began to disappear one by one. The captain wrote in his log that a dark figure was moving through the ship at night. By the time the ship arrived in England, it was empty, only Dracula remained. He made his way to London, where he planned to spread his curse. He targeted Lucy Westenra, a young woman who soon became ill. Her friends noticed that she was pale and weak, and she had strange bite marks on her neck. Dr. Van Helsing, an expert in strange diseases, was called to help. But he quickly realized that this was no ordinary sickness. Lucy was under Dracula's spell. Dracula was no longer just a story, he was real, and he was in England. Lucy's friends, including Jonathan's fiancée Mina, fought to save her. But despite their efforts, Lucy transformed into a vampire. Heartbroken, they had to end her curse, realizing the true horror of Dracula's power. Van Helsing and Jonathan gathered a team to hunt Dracula. They discovered that he was hiding in an abandoned house, resting in a coffin filled with Transylvanian soil, his only source of power. They tried to destroy his hiding places, but Dracula was always one step ahead. With his supernatural speed and strength, he escaped their grasp. Mina, now linked to Dracula through a strange connection, could sense where he was. But this also meant she was in grave danger. The team had to stop Dracula before he could turn Mina into a vampire forever. The final battle was near. Dracula, realizing he was being hunted, fled back to his castle in Transylvania. But Jonathan, Van Helsing, and their team were right behind him. The journey was long and dangerous, filled with traps and tricks set by Dracula's followers. Mina, growing weaker, could still feel Dracula's presence, guiding them toward his castle. As they neared Transylvania, they knew they had one last chance. If Dracula reached his castle, he would be too powerful to stop. They had to catch him before the sun set. The race against time had begun. At the foot of Dracula's castle, the final battle took place. Dracula's loyal servants tried to protect him, but Jonathan and his team fought bravely. As the sun began to rise, Dracula appeared, a dark shadow against the morning light. He was strong, but the hunters had one advantage. The sun was his weakness. With one final strike, they ended Dracula's reign. His body crumbled into dust, and the curse that had haunted them was lifted. Mina was safe. The terror was over. Or so they thought. With Dracula gone, peace returned, for now. The team never spoke of their battle, fearing that no one would believe them. But even though Count Dracula was defeated, his legend lived on. Stories of vampires spread across the world, and many wondered if he was truly gone. Some say that deep in the mountains of Transylvania, in the ruins of an old castle, a shadow still lingers. Could Dracula return one day? Only time will tell. Like and subscribe for more stories.